All right, so in this video, we're going to take a look at procedural generation. So I'm going to start by creating a bunch of boxes. Uh, this is going to be kind of like our main artifact. So I'll just start with a bunch of boxes. So it's a good idea is to, create a square placed in the center of the scene. Again, if you do not have a square, make sure that you created your Unity in 2D mode and you have created a square from sprites right here. If you don't have that, you can just import any sprite you would like. So next thing, I'm just gonna copy and paste this a bunch of times. So easiest way to do that is, you can see I'll be doing it here. So I want to disable my camera. So I want to make it unselectable. So when I go like this, you can see I can click on this little kind of like finger icon. So you can see when I'm selecting it now, it's only select square. It does not select camera anymore, right? Because I'll be doing a lot of my work here. So it's still selectable in hierarchy, but it's not selectable in the view. So now here we go. This is my square. I'm just gonna check my by how much it moves. So let's say I wanted to move by 2 units. So I'm going to do it this way. So Control D, so to duplicate an object, and then I'm holding Control using Move tool to create a bunch of squares like this. So I'm just copy and pasting them. So what I'm trying to achieve is just a simple grid, right? So just a grid of objects. So this should be 2 units apart from each other, and that's a good start. So let's make maybe a bit more. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. So I have duplicated them somewhere. Yeah, I think it's here. Okay, that's good. So let me just check this. Okay, so is this? No, it's not double. Another way of quickly checking if your object's duplicated or not, I should have probably started it from beginning, is make sure that your transparency is a little bit faded, because if it is, you should be able to quickly see if any object is duplicating. So in my case, I have a bunch of them here. I can see the color was slightly different. So I'm gonna just bring that in here. This is pretty good. Control D one more time. Yeah, I should have just started with that because I can clearly see when I'm uh, placing an object on top of itself and when I'm not. So here's my little grid. So now I'm just going to select all of my squares and give them a script, which is going to be just pro-gen. So pro-gen, procedural generation. So a little bit of creative programming. So I need to wait a little bit and open the script. So it's going to check if it's okay to compile the script. So I think it's fine. Yep. Right, so for this exercise, I'm just going to work with a start function. And I just want to change. So let's say I want to change rotation of my objects. So what I'm going to do is on start function, pass in a variable in a moment, but first I'll just pass in a value. So transform.rotate, and I'm going to change all of my objects rotation to, let's say, 45 degrees, right? So this is a simple exercise. So all of these objects have this script, and now when I press play, all of them will be rotated 45 degrees. So I'm gonna also remove alpha for now. So here we go. So we start and they all have this outcome. So now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to pass in a random range function in this. So to do that, it's best to kind of create a variable. So let's do a floating point variable, random angle. Let's put it this way. So before I place it in there, I should set it. So random angle is random dot range, like this. And here just decide how many different numbers I have in there. So for example, if I wanted values from 0 to 1, I could do it this way, right? Also, if I wanted to have values, let's say like on a dice from 0 to 6, I would do it this way. But just one other thing, make sure you would have changed this to an integer, right? Because like this, we will be getting integer values. But if I keep it as a float, which is what I want to keep it here, I will be getting everything between these values. So let's say I want my value to be between 0 and 10, right? So it's a random angle and it's going to be in my z-axis on rotation. So now I'm going to press play. So you should see all of these angles should be anywhere between 0 and 10. So hopefully you can see it right here as I'm clicking on objects. So 2, 1.9, 7, 1, 6.6, 4, and so on, right? So we are getting variation on the angles based on these random values here. And we can set them up to whatever they need to be. So for example, if I want to have angles between 0 and let's say 360, so all of the possible angles, then I could do that. As simple as that. So here's my random angle and it starts from 0 and maximum value that is possible is 360. So let's just run that. Okay, so we can see all of them have random values. So I think this is already kind of looks like a procedurally generated art to some extent. You can also, when using random range function, you can also go into negative values. So for example, if I want something to be between 30 degrees in a negative direction and a positive direction, I could do that. So this is an example of this. So minus 30 and 30 is my kind of scope, if you like. So total, different variance is 60 degrees, but you can see they can be either positive or negative, right? And here are just different angles. So this is kind of up to you how you use it. So I would say another interesting way of using it, so this particular function, random.range, is using color. And I will show you how that works in a moment. So first we're going to create a new type of variable. So it's going to be called gradient. When you're making a gradient, make sure it's public. So gradient, so you can call it something like my colors, and here we'll store color values that I'll be later be passing on into my sprite. So let's imagine it this way. So I'll have my sprites right here. So I'm going to select all of them. And here you can see my gradient appeared here. So right now it just appears from white to white, but I already have a bunch of preset values that I have created before. So let's just work from this from now. So at the bottom here I have colors, right? And I can remove color or add color by clicking on here or sliding it off like this. And for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go from red to blue, right? So what's interesting about our gradient value is that it evaluates a value. So if it's a 0, it's going to be red. If it's 1, it's going to be blue. If it's 0.5, it's going to be this purple. But I can access any of those values, right? So let me show you how that works in the script. So let's say here's my access to gradient variable. So I'm going to simply get a sprite renderer dot color, and I'm going to set it based on my gradient. So my colors, so this is where you need to write evaluate, right? So we are evaluating our gradient, and I'm going to just start with a 0, right? So here I'm overwriting my sprite color using gradient color, which is located at 0. So we can take a look. So 0 is here, right? So location, and 100% would be here. So it's kind of like 0 to 1, think it this way. So if I press play, they all should be red. If I was to change it to 1, so they all should be green. So here we go. Sorry, not green, blue. So all of the values are blue right now. And then let's try 0.5 as well. So 0.5 right here. So this is 0.5, and this should be right in the middle right here, which is that color. You can see it matches. So we can see that we can use different color values, right? And on top of that, I can also start making different gradients. So I can start saving them. For example, if I like this variable, this gradient right here, I can simply click on it and it'll make a copy of that. So I can always come back to it and edit it later. So, because I've been using Unity for a while, I kind of made a bunch of different things here. So I have, a little rainbow, like other little color combinations that I like using. But let's say I want to make a new one, new rainbow, right? So you could always do it this way. So start with red, finish with red because I want this color to loop, and then I'll simply just slide along here. So go into purples, go into blues, go into a cyan, a bit of greens, and then yellows, and maybe oranges. I think you can do up to, I think, 10 of these colors like this. And another thing, when you are happy with it, make sure you kind of spread it out in a way that it makes sense. So right now, I'm going to have a ton of different red colors. So maybe like that feels better. So this kind of like up to you, something to play with. And if you're happy with that, click new and you will have this little rainbow here, right? I can always go back to my previous color here, right? So 0 0.5 should be here. So I still have that in my script. So it's 0 0.5, right? So which generates this color right here. Now, of course, instead of a particular color, I'm going to choose a random color for each object. And if I want to, I can just write it in here. I do not need to store the variable if I'm not reusing it. So I can simply write random, let me just scroll out a bit, dot range from 0f to 1f, and make sure you do write f to define that it's a floating point value, because if you're not going to do it, it will assume it's an integer. Okay, so let's try this. So now we're changing our sprite renderer color based on like our gradient from 0 to 1. So let's try this. All right, so we have different colors, and if I had, let's say, uh, this. See, I will be working with those values. If I got back to, so let's say blue and purple, that's fine. So this also works. So this can be whatever you want it to be. And additionally, you can also start changing transparency value on top, which is called alpha, right? So if I did something like that, all of my blue values will be quite transparent. So I'll get this effect. And you can also add multiple, positions for this as well. So if I wanted everything to be slightly transparent, I could enable it like this. Right, so here's kind of like a little effect like that, which again already looks kind of interesting, kind of like procedural art. So I think the next step to do would be add, like maybe play with scale a little bit. So we're changing our color, our angle. So let's do a scale as well. So transform dot local scale. The way I'll do it is I will just create a new vector free, which is set to 1, 1, 1, and I'll multiply it by my random scale. So I can just create a variable or I can just set it directly. I'm just going to set it directly with random.range. And I want my scale to be, so let me just take a look at objects. So let's say anywhere between, because I do want it to be visible, so anywhere between 0 0.5 or 0 0.4 to, let's say, 1.5. So something like 0 0.2 to 1.5. This is where I want to be. Um, okay, so 0 0.2 f and 1.5 f. So this is the range that I have just decided on. So I'll press play, and you can see we have our kind of like random variation every time. Like looks really colorful, looks really interesting. Maybe the background is a bit too dominant, so I'm gonna maybe turn it down a bit like that. So this should be much more, yeah, much more happy. So again, this is something to play with. Like try to play with scales, with colors, with rotations, also with sprites. You don't need to work with a square. You know, a square is a good thing to start doing because you can see rotation and how the object is positioned. But if I were to replace it with any of the other sprites that I have here, so these are just simple brushes from Procreate, you can see, you know, I will start making things like this, right? So I'm just dragging and dropping different sprite patterns that I have. You can also experiment with it in this way. So imagine if I took my sprites and just really stretched them out, right? I will get a bunch of lines. So currently, my um, scaling is normalized, right? So everything, let me just take it out. So let's imagine I'm working with a sprite here. So everything is changing at the same time. So if I clicked on here, you can see it's changing at the same time because I'm multiplying 1, 1, 1 by my random range. So they all get the same value, right? So kind of like this effect happens. Uh, Now, if I wanted to have Y or X a bit longer to create like lines, I could. I just simply need to take my object and let's say give it. So my Y is going to be 50, right? So it's going to be quite large. And let's see if I can find the same pattern. Yeah, it used to be this one, I think. Don't worry if it's a different size. It doesn't really matter because when the script will compile on the start frame, it will be fixed. So here we go. All right, so this is kind of like you can get this liney kind of art, which is, I think is quite interesting. You can also remove rotation if you like, and just try see what it looks like. So here's without rotation, have this kind of cool art. And again, if I were to change my gradients, I would get a different value. So let's go with, let's say, a rainbow. See what that looks like. So this is, I think, very interesting, very nice. And again, you can work with also maybe transparency because maybe you want your objects, your sprites to be more transparent. You can give it a go to see what that looks like. So you can see it's a very different blend here. You could also add some other colors. Let's say this. So this is something I've made. Yeah, it looks like kind of like a seaside and a grass. I think I was using it for something else. Let's give it a go. Yeah. So you can see that's very nice, very natural kind of colors. And again, you can play with it, and please do, and find different interesting combinations. Like I like these values here. Look really kind of like rusty and sandy. So I think, yeah, really pretty colors. I might use that as a thumbnail for this video, actually. Right, so we have taken a look at basic procedural generation in Start window, right? We've done it here. Now we're going to move on and we're going to work a little bit more with an update function instead of start. So what I'm going to do is just delete this code, right? I'm going to reuse the same script. If you feel like you want to, make a new script, this is absolutely fine. I'm just going to do my own thing. So here's my prod.gen. I'm removing all of my script. Just close it as well so it can compile properly. And then I'm just going to, I think, just make a bunch of boxes again, just a little bit differently this time. So make sure your main camera is unselectable because it'll make your life easier. Then you can drag and drop your sprite, which should be a square. And then you can add a prod generation script, which for now is nothing. So it's not doing anything at all. So we'll need to add start or update function. And so here I would like to add I would like to make a line of them, right? And I want that line to be quite dense. So let me use transparency as well so I can see exactly what I'm doing. So currently my move is set to 2 units. So I'm going to use that. So Control D, move, Control D, move, Control D, move, Control D, move. So I'm just using this and I'm holding control when I'm moving my object. So again, let's grab these, place them here. Let's grab these, place them here. So this is pretty good. So now what I'm gonna do is grab these guys and duplicate them and just place them in place. I can't quite do that. Okay, I'm gonna remove that. So I'm going to select them again and change my movement to 1. Select all of them. Again, Control D and holding Control, you can see I have placed them right next to each other. So it appears like one long line, but they're actually right next to each other. And then I think I'm gonna do it one more time with like 0.5. 0.5. So I'm going to select these objects, Control D, and so you can see they all kind of like 0.5 units away from each other, and there's, should be object here in between as well, right? That's enough for now. We can increase density later with, the similar kind of method. Also, when you're working with, calculations here, you can always just place a division. So, for example, divide by 2, and it'll give you the value that you're looking for. For now, I'm just going to leave it at 0.5. Right, so here I have a bunch of objects. They're really close to each other, 0.5 units away from each other. They all have this pro generation script. And what I'm going to do is create, so I'm going to store my X position of each object because as we can see, each object has a slightly different X position. So let's start with, so next to the camera should be 0. Then we'll have 0.5, right? So the more moving away from the origin, the bigger is my X position. So this is great. So I will need a variable. So float, I'm going to call it X position, and I will need to store it. So on the first frame, so on start frame, I'm going to say that X position is equals to transform.position dot X. So I'm storing my X position, right? Storing X position. This is where it's happening on the first frame. When the game starts, we're simply storing our X position. So once I have stored it, I also want to apply it to my Y position. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use transform.translate, right? So translation, we use that for movement of objects. Because I'm only applying it on the first frame, so it only happens once, I can actually use it for movement of objects, one time. Usually when you use this function, it will move objects continuously. For example, in update. On start, it wouldn't do that because start only happens once. Right, so in here, I just want to pass my X position, right, into my Y position. So it's going to go here. And try to kind of like visualize what's going to happen before I have the outcome, right? So I'm taking my X position, I'm storing it, and I'm applying it to my Y position, right? So yeah, just think what's going to happen, and I'm going to press play and see if this is your expectation or not, right? A staircase. So hopefully this makes sense because we're applying X position and we're making it the same as Y. So we're getting a diagonal line. So you can see they're all the same. Yeah. Now I can also start playing with it a little bit. So for example, I can take my X position and let's say divide it by 5. So just a simple little thing. So divided by 5, and we have a different value here, right? So it's the slope is much like more shallow, right? Again, if I wanted to make it more extreme, I can. So let's say I'll multiply it by 3. So this can be really steep. right? So start kind of like imagining what the code looks like. So you can see this is super steep. I'm gonna bring it back to what it was. And in fact, I'm going to do something slightly different. So in this function, I'm going to apply instead of like linear algebra, which is what we're doing right now, I'm going to add a little bit of oscillation. And this can be achieved with sine and cosine functions. So think of it this way. We are just passing in a value, right? So any value, and I'm going to get the value like back anywhere from 1 to 0 to -1, right? And hence there is an oscillation. And because, x position is continuously increased, I'm actually going to recreate this wave right here. So let's try to do that, right? So we have math functions in Unity. So I can just say, okay, well, math function, math f, and I'm going to pass in a cosine here, my x position, right? And this should give me values between 1 and -1. So simple as that. Make sure you save your code, jump back to Unity, press play. All right, we have little waves here. Make sure your objects are positioned really close to each other. If they're not, then you won't be able to see the waves so well, right? So see, if I'm deleting them, you won't be able to see them so well. Or even if you have, even if it's more sparse, you can see your sample rate is going to be really separate, so you won't be able to see it. So make sure you have kind of like enough objects next to each other. So this is what I was talking about before. I can take this, so all of my objects right here, so they have a gap of 0.5, and I could even increase it to, let's say, 0.25, which is a half. And then, so when I copy them, so I'm just pressing Control D, and I'm just going to hold Control and move them, so 0.25 units. So now if I draw my line, my sine, you can see it's going to be even more detailed, right? So we're getting this kind of like dragon-like shape right here. So this is already all very interesting. And again, we can manipulate our wave, right? So if I multiply the value itself, so let's say by 5, this is me accessing amplitude, right? So this is increasing intensity of the wave. So just go back in here. So amplitude is how loud or intense the signal is. So this is going from 1 to -1. So if it was smaller like this, it's going to be, less loud or less intensity. If it's going to be much bigger like that, it's going to be more intense. Another thing that we can control is frequency. So that's like how fast the wave happens, which I'll show you in a moment. But first, let's take a look at amplitude, so the intensity of the signal. All right, so you can see really wavy here. We can, maybe make it more extreme, times 7. So this should be even more wavy. All right, so you can see. And we can even see our sample rate. Okay. So we can go the other way around. I can divide it by 2. So this is going to be a less intense wave. Right, so it looks like that. I'm gonna just bring it back to just 1, so as is. And then I'm going to multiply a different thing. So this is our default wave, and I'm going to divide or multiply. So this bit right here, and this is going to affect my frequency, right? So if you divide and multiply the entire thing, this is your amplitude. If you divide and multiply like inside value, this is your frequency itself. So let's multiply by 10, for example. All right. Okay, so this is a little bit too extreme. Multiply by 2. So sometimes, yeah, you have so many, like not enough points to represent your information. So you can see this is much more dense, right? So the frequency has increased. I can also go the other way around. So I can go divided by 2. So again, I'm dividing this in internal value to play with my frequency. So now you can see there are longer waves, right? Again, I can still work with my amplitude if I want to. So if I want my signals to be louder, I can, let's say, multiply by 3. So let's get something like this going. All right, so you can see not only I'm going up and down, also the frequency is longer. It's a longer frequency here. So this is something to play for. You can even make it into variables. So this is your frequency and this is your amplitude variables, if that makes sense. So the next thing I am going to do is, so we can do something interesting like also pass in rotation. So transform dot rotate, and I'm going to pass my x position, which is kind of like a waveform, uh, into z rotation. So let's just take a look and see what happens here. So I'll press play. Uh, did I apply it? I think I did. So again, yeah, I did apply it. So you can see my rotation is different. But because my values, they go from, what is it, -3 and 3. So I'm saying -3 and 3 because I'm multiplying everything by 3. So instead of going to from -1 to 1, it goes from -3 to 3. But I want it to be even higher. So I want to increase my rotation maybe by -30 and 30. So I'm just multiplying the whole thing here. So again, this bit is going to get a bit mathy, but it's totally worth it because we are, with a little bit of code, with a few lines, we are creating something, I think, really pretty. So here you can see how the position and the sign affects rotation of the object. So let's increase it maybe a bit more, maybe by 50. So that's quite extreme. Oh, so this is maybe a bit too much. You can see it's almost like folds on itself. I'm gonna bring it back to 20. So our total rotation should be 60 degrees, I believe. Yeah, that's all right. I might even bring it down. So also once you kind of got this going and you can see what's going on, you can select all of your squares and again, play with more sprites. So I have a bunch of different patterns here that you could use. So maybe go with something like recognizable so we know what this looks like, right? Um, and I'm gonna just run it, see what happens here. All right, so we should get this kind of like really nice pattern. So you can always toggle grid if you like, or just go into game mode. Yeah. So we have this really nice pattern that we have just created using simple shapes and the sine wave, sorry, cosine wave. You can also use a sine wave if you like to. I think, yeah, it's like this, SIN. So let's take a look at this. All right. Yep. So we have a little thing like this. I might need to move it a bit down because it does not appear to be in the center of the screen for me. Or alternatively, you can also just make a bunch more of them. I think selected camera for some reason. I don't know why that happened. So let me just select these. Okay, back to here. So Control D, moving them down. Control D, moving them down. Maybe this close. Yep, I think that's pretty good. So let's see it. All right, so we've got a bunch of different ways. So it will be nice to introduce some color. So again, I'm going to select all of my boxes here, and we are going to add the gradient. So again, when making a gradient, usually needs to be public. So public gradient, my colors. I'm gonna just save that and add some sort of a gradient that I want to use. So let's wait for compilation. Here is the gradient. So I'll go with these colors. So I already kind of like them. So I'll go with it. So this will be 0, this will be 0.5, and this will be 1. And so for beginning, I can do random color. So get component sprite renderer dot color is set to my colors again dot evaluate. You have to remember this bit. And so let's just go with simple things. So let's say 0. right? So I'm just getting the first value. So now all of them should be this kind of like dull blue color. Yeah, and they are. And so where is this coming from? Like why are they blue? This is because of this value here, right? So this is a 0, 0 0.5, 1. Okay, so let's add randomness instead. So random dot range from 0 to 1. Don't forget to add f. So now I'm going to get values between 0 and 1 inside of each individual sprite. So this is going to be quite random. So you can see, I think it will still look interesting. It does look very interesting, very dithered, but you know, it doesn't have a pattern. This actually, this actually pretty cool. Maybe I'll add some transparency. Let me just quickly experiment. So I'll make them half transparent because I think they're a bit too like in your face. They're popping too much. Yeah, this is nicer. So this is something that you could do. But yeah, now instead of using uh, like random values, I would like to use my x position, right? So first things first, I'm going to move this piece of code a little bit lower because you know, I'm setting my x position here. So if I try to use it before I set it, it's not going to work. So again, I'm gonna hold Alt, move it down, maybe make some space just so you can see the difference. Yeah, so this is my sprite. Oops, sorry. Okay, and yeah, instead of this, I'm going to pass here my x position. And again, our x position goes between, so it's 3 and -3. So I'm going to remove this for now because I think it's a bit confusing. Remove this, but bring it back here. So it was 3 times 20, right? So it was 60 basically. And let's just see where we are with it, right? What colors we're getting. So you can see we're getting like nice gradient transitions, but there is a little kind of error here. So the values that I'm getting, so I'll try to explain it the best I can. I will use this gradient. So we're going from red to blue, right? If I press play, so we're getting nice transition on blues, but when it comes to reds, they just kind of stay red for a while, right? This is because some of the values are negative, right? Remember how our like sine or cosine wave is going up and down, right? So the moment it goes past this value, the gradient cannot represent color, so it just represents it as red for a while, right? So here's our gradient, right? So imagine, so this is 1, you know, it slowly goes to 0, and then we try to go to -1, but I can only show red, there's no colors here. So I might need to normalize it because right now I'm getting way too much of the same red and there's no transition. So this is that bit that I was talking about, which is not what I want. So I'm going to quickly normalize this. Kind of like the math for it is we can add 1, right? So previously our wave was going between -1 to 1, right? So it was just going like from -1 to 1 like this. So I added 1 to the whole wave. So that means now it's going between 0 and 2. So it's going like above, if you like. And then I just want to normalize it. So I want to divide it by 2 because I want it to go from 0 to 1 like this. So I'm going to bring it back. I hope the math makes sense. But this will be good now. Okay. You can see we have a like a really clean transition, right? Just to maybe show you better, I'm going to use a different gradient because that red is a bit hard to see. So let's say I'm going, actually, let's show it to you like this. So I'm going from yellow to orangey and then pink and kind of bluish, and then we start again. Or actually, I think it goes back. Yeah, it goes back. So you can see we are already generating very interesting patterns. And yeah, try it with different colors, different variations, different sizes. See if that works. And of course, I think this is already pretty nice. But I think the next step is to animate our work. So I'm just going to jump in here at the update function. And I'm just going to give it a simple rotation. So transform.rotate. Uh, and as far as I remember, it shouldn't rotate too fast. So let's go on z-axis 0. Maybe 1f, maybe slower. We can define this variable. But I'm going to rotate each individual sprite by this value. All right, so here we are. Have this kind of cool effect. Also, if you are interested, you can pass in something like X position in here because they all have different X position values. So they will rotate differently depending on the position and the um, sine or cosine wave that you're passing. So you can see it will look something like this. If you think it's a bit too fast, you can just slow it down immediately here. So let's say I'm dividing it by 20 because I think it's a bit too extreme. I want to keep it more aesthetic. So let's say like this. Right, so just take a look at that. So this is, something that you can create pretty easily, 5-10 minutes. If you know what you're doing, it's pretty fast. If you have nice assets, you can start doing this quickly. You can also replace the sprites and see what that looks like. So let's say I'll place in these patterns here. Right, so you can see it's like maybe some underwater creatures or like some fractals. It looks quite interesting. So this is not exactly fractal art, but it has similar appearance because there's a lot of repetition. And again, uh, please try different colors, right? So let's bring the rainbow back. So it's a very aggressive rainbow. So I'm gonna use my rainbow, which is a bit toned down with transparency here. And you can see. So this is, I think, very effective, very interesting visuals, right? So yeah, I would say just experiment with rotation. Also, you can try with movement. It's a little bit harder because it also needs to go up and down. And actually, let's try movement, see if I can do it. So transform dot translate. So I want my objects to go up and down on, let's say, Y position. So the way I can do that, so I'm going to leave it 0 for now. So the way I could do that, I could also pass in a wave here of just time. So math function dot cosine over time dot time. Let's just see what that looks like. Might be a bit too aggressive, but let's figure it out. Yeah, very aggressive. But they are moving up and down. Okay, so a bit too fast. So I'm gonna slow it down. So divide it by maybe 30, maybe 50. So you can see the amplitude of the objects moving up and down was too fast. So I'm just slowing down the whole thing. All right, so now it's going up and down slowly in a, I think, nice manner. So it's kind of like breathing a little bit, if you like. And so maybe I'm going to increase my rotation here. I think that would be interesting. I don't know why I'm getting this visual error here. Just ignore it, I guess. Yeah, so getting something like that. So quite interesting. So yeah, you can try to experiment with this. You can try to make screensavers or maybe a nice little intro or transition in your video games. I think this is a great way of learning programming, and there's kind of like no wrong way of doing this. Just experiment and try different things. and see what you come up with, because I think, yeah, this is all very interesting. You can also maybe apply scale, which have I done scale? No, I haven't. So transform.local scale is new vector free 111 times x position. So again, our x position. So let's see what that looks like. Maybe it's going to be better. Maybe it's going to be worse. There's only one way to find out. Oh, looks very different. So I think it's because there's a bunch of negative values. But it's kind of interesting in its own right, though. Whoa. I mean, this is definitely interesting. So to try these values, also, so maybe if there's too many negative values here, you could add the value, so it's never negative. Because right now, so if this is going between -1 and 1, right? Because I didn't do that here, I can add 1 or I can add 2, so they're just like anywhere between 1 and 2, right? Is that correct? Oh, so that's pretty cool. I think this is, I mean, this is really nice, but maybe more transparency is needed. Okay, let's try with more transparency. So I'll set my transparency to like a 5 and yeah, like a 15 here. Let's give this a go. So again, at this point, I'm just experimenting. So I really want you to kind of like take this and make your own thing with it. Just see what happens. Here's kind of some of the code. You can try and do your own thing. So hope you enjoyed this exercise, and I'll see you in the next one.